Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 252 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is Own Your Shift. Our quote of the day comes to us from Steve Rizzo. When you shift your focus, you change your life. I've been following our guest today for quite some time. He has definitely dealt with his fair share of challenges, but he never quit. As a former NFL player, American Ninja Warrior, coach, consultant, author, and speaker, Anthony Trucks is definitely busy and making things happen. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Anthony, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thank you, man. I'm happy to be here.
So the first question I ask everybody is, are you ready to bring it today?
Oh, yeah, man. I'm ready to roll.
So the number one objective of our show is to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up. And I was curious if you yourself have either a no-quit story or perhaps a really challenging time where you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
Oh, man, yeah. My life is riddled with them. How deep you want to go on these? You want a business? You want a relationship? You want a life one? What would be the most intriguing for you?
That's a great question that I never get asked. I think a life one's probably one that the listeners resonates with.
Let's do a life one, and I'm gonna give the words, man. Sometimes it's heavy, but so I was given into foster care at 3, so I grew up in a really interesting situation where I didn't know who I was or where I fit. And if anybody's ever felt like out of place or not accepted or appreciated, like that was my first memory of life. Bounced around the system, dealt with a lot of abuse. Landed in a family, which is my family now at 6 years old, all white family. I'm the only African-American person. So I had some interesting dynamics. Fast forward 8 years of craziness in the system. I was finally adopted by that same family at 14. Tried to play football. My mom was diagnosed with MS. My brother went to the military. So I pretty much checked out of all life. And then I had this moment where somebody woke me up and I decided to try my hand at football again, dug in heavy. Was blessed to eventually get good at the game, was better, got a college scholarship, went to play football at the University of Oregon, had a son, met my real dad for the first time. That was weird. Married my high school sweetheart, played the NFL, came home, and all hell broke loose. Tore my shoulder after 3 years in the league. And then I got to this moment, which is like the no-quit moment you're asking about. I wanted to find my identity again because I had this massive crisis. And so I put everything into a gym, neglected my wife, my son, my 2 other kids I'd had. Business was tanking. Marriage falling apart, and here it goes sitting at some point in time. My wife had an affair because I was neglecting her. To be honest, it took me a lot of years to get that. Business was horrible and doing poorly. I was getting out of shape. NFL was no longer there. I was putting my kids in a position what I thought like what I grew up in. And so I drove off one night after this UFC fight where I didn't move for like 3 hours, was stuck. And I was like, I'm done. I sent a text message to my friends and family and said, please tell my kids who their father was. And it was like this wave of emotion. I just couldn't stop in that night because it just was hitting me. And as the emotion wore off, man, I kind of realized how stupid of a situation I'd put myself in, and there was a lot that needed to change. And so that was kind of like this really dark bottom. And I decided either like it's time to take some rat poison or it's time to get up and fight for a better life, man. And so that's what I did. Didn't quit, thankfully, and now I've created some cool stuff outside of that.
That's quite a backstory, and I think it's always very humbling for us to have guests that share that. And I think the best part about the story is obviously you're still here and you're still doing some amazing things. And just want to piggyback off, if you wouldn't mind just telling our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you're doing today.
Yeah, man. So my name is Anthony Trucks. Those who I don't know if you said it yet, but we did. But I am a former NFL athlete, American Ninja Warrior, and NBC. I'm now the first former NFL athlete to hit a buzzer on the show. I'm a speaker, an author, a coach. I'm a founder of a company called Identity Shift, where we teach people how to elevate how they operate to level up their life and business. And so for me, I get to travel the world and teach from not just the science and the textbooks and the psychology I've studied, but really from my life and make it applicable and actionable so they can actually go and apply it to what they're doing in their life to make I say make shift happen. My big word I play with is shift, but that's the idea. I help people shift and make shift happen in life.
No, I think that's it's an awesome play on words, and I think the first time I read it before preparing for the interview, I was kind of like, there's probably a really good thing behind that. So, interesting question I ask every guest is, if you had to define yourself, but you could only use one word, what word would you pick?
Oh man, one word I would say. Oh, this is a tough one because my brain wants to go in like 70 ways. I'm going to say that I am I'm an honest guy. And honest, I think, ties to a lot. I'm honest with myself about what I'm capable of and not capable of. I'm honest with myself about how hard I'm working. I'm honest with how I show up as a father and a husband. I'm honest with my clients. I'm honest with how I show up on social. So I try to go to bed every night with not a sliver or a drip of dirt on me in my heart. So I show up transparently honest in all aspects of my life so I can sleep well at night.
I think that's important, and I think you mentioned something that I think a lot of people kind of waver with is the whole concept of who you are on social media, and I think a lot of people tend to put stuff out there because they know that people will like it or follow it or view it. And I have to say, you do have some really good stuff on social media, and I actually connected with you via Instagram. So I'm glad that you picked that word, because I think it does fit you. Another word and another question we like to ask each guest is for their definition of success, or what does success mean to you?
Oh, success. This is one I've been getting this one a lot lately. I like this question. And it makes me have to think. And when everybody hears it, it's like, oh, I'm going to piggyback on his idea or something. But here's my true success for me is control. And I don't mean like controlling things. I mean, like right now we're in the middle of this crazy pandemic of, the world shutting down like a movie. But I have the control of my life to be able, like, I'm not financially hurting. I have control to be able to choose to stay home. I also, like, when I look at, let's say, outside of this craziness, just life, I have control of, when I pick my kids up, when I drop them off for school, when I want to spend time with my wife, when I want to take trips, when I want to work, when I don't want to work. And I know some people say freedom is a thing, but then I always look at, like, yeah, I have freedom, but maybe it's freedom to choose which crappy job I have to go to that I don't like, or freedom to have to deal with a client that I don't want. But that's not really freedom. So I look at control for me as the freedom. And that's what I think success is, not the Bentley and the Ferrari and all the stuff that people think is amazing, because I've been in them and I could own them. But then it's like, all right, well, that doesn't do anything for you. I'd like to have the control to be able to sit in my pajamas, my onesie with my family, and watch a dumb movie on a Saturday night and not have to stress on anything.
I think that question is such a powerful, and it's an interesting question, which is obviously why we ask it. But I loved your answer because it's authentic to you, and there's nothing wrong with having certain monetary goals and things like that, because it does allow you to use your word control, and allows people to have freedom to do different things. But I really like that question, because we're in a similar space. I'm curious to get your answer on this question. I was curious if you're reading anything right now, or perhaps you've read something recently that you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
Yeah, I'm literally looking at like 8 books, and I'm in the middle of a speed reading course because I like to get books in my head as fast as I can get them in my head. So I just got done reading a couple books. One I got done reading is called The Copywriting Secrets, which is actually by a guy named Jim Edwards, which is pretty good. I like the book. I got done listening to a book called The Alter Ego Effect as well, and they're both good books. Depends on what you choose to do. Like Alter Ego is interesting. It's because it's more based around, like, who are you in the moments when you need to show up? Do you show up and then, take advantage of an opportunity, or do you fall behind because you don't have the right person? Then copywriting is more of like, how do I communicate with people and share my heart in a way where my words that are in my heart get into their heart as well?
That's awesome. And one of the things that we've identified and we really focused on probably the last year to year and a half with our podcast is the importance of a morning routine. And I was curious if you yourself have a morning routine that you swear by.
I don't know if I swear by it, but I know if I don't do it, that I feel funky, like putting shoes on the wrong feet. I mean, I'll go through the day, I'll walk around, but it's like, nah, I don't like it. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are kind of the more solid morning routines. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we get up at 5:50. I say me and my 15-year-old son. We get up and go to the gym. We get back to the house between 6:50 and 7 o'clock. I get in the shower. I get my twins up at 7. I do a live stream with my community at about 7:15ish. Take my kids to school. I come back at 8. I make my mud water with my MCT oil. I read as best I can for like a good 15, 20 minutes. Then by 9 o'clock, I'm pretty much rolling. And that 8:30, 9 o'clock window, my wife, she kind of gets up and we hang out for a little bit and she does her thing. And then that's my thing. So by 9 o'clock, I get my message on my phone that reminds me to serve people deeply and fully from my heart because their success is my success. And it tunes my brain into what I'm going to do for the world to serve. And then I go.
That's awesome. And I love that question, too, because literally we get answers all over the map. Some people are crazy early wake up. Some people are similar to the 5:50, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. But I really love that question. I'm curious to get your answer on this, too, just based on what you share with us as far as your past, is if you could go back and give the 20-year-old version of yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
20 years old. Let me take. So 20 years old, I was in college. And I was preparing to go, hopefully, to the NFL, I think, at that time. And I was having a son. Oh, man, 20-year-old advice. Here's one thing I think that would have helped that guy be much better is no one's going to come save you. And I kind of knew that, but it was always holding out hope that, things are going to work out a certain way because someone's going to pick me up in the NFL or, I'm going to get this big break or whatever it might be. And you kind of, not that you don't work fully, but you're almost like, working just to stay in a position to get someone else to help you. And not that I went slow, but I think if I were to go back to that guy, I'd be like, hey, no one's coming to save you, man. Get up on your horse and go start riding that thing.
I think that's fascinating advice. And as a 20-year-old myself, I was a college athlete, and I was actually engaged at the time. And I think it's just great advice as a 20-year-old. Now, if I had the opportunity or the ability to grant you dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, future Anthony. He's not dead or alive.
He's just there.
He's in your interim. You know why? Here's why. I do a lot of studying psychology and neuroscience, and I always read things, and I have other people who've read things and tell me, and I realize I don't always get their brain. And so I would love to have a conversation just based on the way that I operate now, knowing where I plan to keep moving towards and then some. I want to have a conversation with someone in the future who's lived a life who I can fully understand their brain. And that only person would be me. So, I don't understand my wife's brain half the time. And I love that woman to death. But I would love to have a dinner with that guy because he'd probably tell me some things now that I'd be like, oh, man, it's pretty awesome. And I get it.
I think we've had 200 and almost 50 episodes released, and I think we have 20 or 25 that are recorded. I don't think anybody's ever answered that question that way. So that's pretty cool. Kudos to you.
Oh, hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
So obviously the whole concept and idea of our podcast is no quit and keep going. And I'm curious, with both your personal life as well as your professional football career, how have you addressed failure in your personal and professional life?
So failure has been a heavy part of my life. I just constantly, it's always the natural setbacks, which you do whenever you approach them. And there's this one thing I learned years ago that allowed me to be able to reconfigure how I operate, which gives me almost a great optimism within failure. But failure for most people, there's one level, one area. It's black or white, when really there's 6 levels. And the top is abject, which is it's the end of the world. And you have structural, which is something broke, but it's really hard to fix, but you can still fix it. Then you have glorious, which is all right, we're going to smoke a cigarette, watch it burn. And those weren't very helpful. But then the bottom 3 are something called common failure. It's the apology was created for this. You have what's called version failure. It's going to break, you learn, and you create a new version. And then predictable or predicted, which is I know it's going to go wrong. I'm going to learn from it. And it's playing sports. We knew at practice we're going to get yelled at. I'm predicting I'm going to fail. I'm going to go out there. That's why I have a coach. Then I have version, the relationship. This one broke. Okay, what did I learn? Let me take that, make a better version, iPhone 1 through 77 already. So the idea for me is a lot of people when I look at failure, I'm all right, what kind of failure was this? Just because I lost this relationship does not mean it's abject and I'm unlovable and I'm never going to be in a relationship again. No, find a way to figure out what part of the version of you needs to be improved for the next version to be great. Or maybe the business failed. Okay, it was predictable. And something's going to fail in the business, but if it's predictable or version, I can now strip out the lesson and reapply myself and win from it. I just don't make everything abject or structural in my life anymore. I just say, hey, what kind of version or predictable failure is this? And how can I move on from it?
That's awesome, and I've never heard it that way. But personally, when I kind of changed the channel in which how I looked at failure, it just changed a lot of things for me, and it opened up my eyes in I think a really fascinating way. And I think some of the most successful people that we all probably look up too. They've failed so much more often than other people. And I'm a huge basketball guy and a huge Michael Jordan fan. And, you go through the stats of what he's done from the victories and the championships. And there's some amazing commercials out there where he talks about the actual failures. And I think when I was younger, it's not that I didn't understand it or see it. I think I was just focused on the good and focused on the wins as opposed to the losses. But I think it's interesting now that we've done just a lot of focusing on the failure perspective, and I think you bring a whole different concept to it. So I appreciate you touching on that.
Welcome.
So we have a clothing line, and we do a lot of different things. And on the back of everything, we have the word #accountability. And I wanted to get your definition, or what does accountability mean to you?
Man, accountability is everything. And the only way for me to actually find a way to be better is to be accountable to myself and to take, honestly, accountability for actions. And even if it's things that were not my fault, but it's actually taking responsibility for working towards it. So whether it's me, not being the best dad this morning because my son was slow and I was in a bad mood and I yelled at him, right? That got to be accountable, dude. Like, hey, to what you said we're going to do to leave the house. Then for me, maybe acting like a bad dad. Or, being accountable in the business. I've had situations where a company that I've worked with for 6 months and $20,000 in, and I did not get a return on the work that they promised. Now I can put it on them, but then I got to be accountable and say, you know what, I should have pulled the trigger and cut the tie much earlier, right? It's their fault for that, but it's my responsibility to make a better choice to protect my finances for my family. So for me, accountability is the only way I get better. If I don't choose to be accountable, then I do not choose to learn, and I will repeat the problem in the future.
I love that, and I think that's the key part at the end is so you don't repeat it. And I think that's the difference of being good versus great versus almost the best at what you do.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned before, you and I connected on social media, and I actually think that people miss something when it comes to social media. And I personally believe that you have an opportunity to inspire and positively motivate people. And I wanted to get your perspective if there's anybody that you really look up to in the sense on social media that has a really good page or really puts out great content.
Oh man, there's a lot of people. What's funny is there's certain areas where I look like I'm not a big go on social for I don't know, for like just randomly being on there. So there's a couple people, like one. A buddy and a colleague and a mentor for sure is Brendan Burchard. Like, he's a great dude, but I love how he shows up and the way he does it organically and teaches. Then you got guys like Jay Shetty, Prince EA, Trent Shelton, guys who are creative. And I love the creativity they bring to put a message into somebody's heart without a ton of the same like words. Like they paint a picture and a story. And then to be honest, I like the people who are just super, just like unabrasively them. Like they don't even care. Like my wife, she just posts things on social that are so great and organic and awesome. And she doesn't even like social. She just has a natural knack for just being her online. And it's actually funny to like look at how she looks to the world. So, I mean, for me, there's a lot of different people, but I like the people because all the ones I just listed, they just show up as them, the best that they are, as opposed to trying to frame up for you something that would make you think they're a certain way.
No, I love that. And I think that the word you talked about, and you mentioned it a couple times on the show today, is authentic. And I think that's the real thing where you get that organic growth where people are actually sharing and saying, hey, check this guy out or check this girl out.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. You use social media the same way I do. Is I don't like to spend a lot of time in there, but I like to look at those people. And ironically, I'm a big fan of Brendan, and Jay's just doing some really cool things. I can't wait for his book. I think it comes out in April.
Yeah, it's coming out soon. We're just I was with them all in Puerto Rico for a mastermind and flew back with him. And yeah, he's got the book coming out. Like, and the guys, all their hearts are great. That's the cool thing is there's the structure in the background of like, they have to think about like, titles and how do we create this and what's the topic. But most people think like they're just doing it so that people are looking at them. I'm telling you, if you sit and listen to them, it's all about everybody else. Like the only way that they prosper is because their hearts are so dialed into how do we help these people.
No, I couldn't agree more. So I want to change lanes now into what we call our hot seat questions. And the only thing I ask for you is that you just spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
Let's do it.
All right. What would you choose if you could choose anything for your last meal?
Oh, Hawaiian Time number 6 Ali'i. It's a restaurant that's only in like a few places in like Oregon and Reno.
Favorite sport?
Football.
All-time favorite team?
Oregon Ducks.
Do you have a favorite smell?
Farts. No, I'm kidding. Favorite smell. My wife, whatever her natural like floaty smell is whenever she's around. Like you know your wife's like smell. That's my wife's smell.
All-time favorite movie.
Avatar.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Yes, it's my quote. There are two types of people in this world: those that work and those that watch them at work. I don't mind the audience.
I love that. I've never heard that from you, so I will definitely use that at some point.
Take it.
Favorite book.
Favorite book. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Great book. Favorite band, group, or singer.
Favorite band, group, or singer? That for me changes all the time. I right now I'm on a tick of I like Odessa, and then singer. I don't know if I have a favorite singer. No, I don't. I like a lot of singers, but Odessa makes good music. It's a cool band.
And if you were stuck in a foxhole and you could only have one person to have your back, who would you pick?
My wife. She's dope.
That's a good question. You get some browning points for that.
Thank you.
What is the best way for our listeners to connect with you and follow you? And please share websites and or social media so the listeners that want to find out more about you, they can do that. And then you've written a book in the past too, right?
Yep, and I'm in the process of writing another one now. Yeah.
So if you could touch on that too so our listeners can grab a copy too.
Yeah. So the best way to find me is on same place you found me, man. Social media, Instagram @AnthonyTrucks is probably the most consistent place I am. I have myself on other platforms, but I like to spend more time engaging, answering messages, and commenting there. Website is anthonytrucks.com if you want to find out what it is that we do more in depth and how it can help you. And outside of that, the book that I have coming out, the title of it so far is Identity Shift. Elevate how you operate to level up your life. The whole focus of what I do is teaching people how to make success their second nature by understanding how to shift the aspects of their life that affect their life, which at the core of it is your identity.
I love that. And then what about your past book you wrote?
Oh yeah, it's called Trust Hustle Part 1: A Life Forged by Fire. So a story that I told in like 2 minutes. This is like a book you can read that has all the gushy insights and craziness and weirdness. And man, that one took I started writing it and it was so hard to write like the first chapter because emotions, just revisiting foster care, that I had to go tuck myself away in Sparks, Nevada for a week and write the entire 80-something thousand word book.
Wow. And they can find that all places that books are found?
Yes, you can go to Amazon. You can find, Trust Your Hustle Part 1. And then the other book I'm in the process of writing, so you can't get that yet. But if you go to anthonytrucks.com and then, put your name and email in and pay attention, I give cool emails out. I have a blast just talking and telling weird stories that engage and teach people lessons that help their life. And so when the book does come out, if you're there, you'll know about it first.
Awesome. I can't wait to read that. And then last question for you is I'd like to see if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Yeah, there's always one, and it's actually on my little My Intent bracelet I'm wearing. And it's a simple statement. It says, own your shift. And own your shift in and of itself, when I say it, you're like, okay, I get that, like, own my stuff. Yeah. But there's more to it, only in a sense of you can break each word down, and in the process, we'll show you how to change your life. The first part is own, which means own that there is something to be done, some work to be done to get better. As long as you protect your current little ego, you're never going to give yourself permission to get better. So own that there is something to do to be able to level up, because everything you want, if you were that person and you had that raw brain, you'd already have it, then it's your work to do, even if it's not your fault. Like, even if, like my wife, she had an affair and I remarried her 3 years later because we learned how to work through it. Like we've now got an amazing marriage. If it's something that happened in the industry that you work in and there's some kind of issue going on that wasn't your fault, but hey, it's your responsibility to work on it. You're going to have to do the work. And the last part is shift. A lot of people, sometimes they know it's a problem and they know that they are the ones that can fix it. But a lot of people don't fix it. They just sit there and deal with it and endure it. And it's super weird, but they do it. So the last part is you got to shift, which means shift your beliefs, shift your thoughts, shift your actions, your mindset, your habits, your character as well. When you shift all of those, that's what altogether creates an identity shift. You can do them all separately or do them all together, but you got to shift and do the work. And if you can do that, you can own your shift and you can make shift happen.
I love it. Well, listen, my man, I truly appreciate it. It was a blast. I think our listeners definitely got a lot out of it, and I hope that you and I can connect again soon.
Yeah, of course, man. Anytime you need me, let me know.
Thank you for listening to episode number 252. Anthony definitely shared some great stuff with us today. In his parting words, he defined owning your shift, and I really took that to heart. He defines it as own the work that needs to be done. You're going to have to do it, and shift your thoughts, beliefs, and ultimately your actions. I challenge you today to think about that shift that you need or want to make. Analyze it, define it, prepare for it, and then ultimately go ahead and take that action. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.